Hey everybody, welcome in to Sports Plus Live here. If you're watching live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, I'm Corey Miller here with Frank Cusimano. Or if you're listening on the podcast, it's Thursday night and we got a lot to talk about again. Let's do some Cardinals here first because they're playing right now. Uh, Frank, it seems like forever since we've been able to just get back in the swing of we get to watch baseball every day, and now it's finally here. And sometimes we're getting two games a day. And the Cardinals split on their first road trip, 4-4. Doesn't sound great on paper, but I was awfully impressed with their first really test back from being off for 2 weeks, not being able to do anything because of COVID.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take 4-4 after a 17-day layoff, playing some really good competition and throwing some pitchers out there who would not have been in the big leagues and who may not be in the big leagues again during this crazy stretch where they play three doubleheaders in 5 days. Absolutely. I think you just got to admire the guts of this team and admire the way that Mike Schilt is juggling things. I mean, imagine he's got one of the best baseball pitchers on the planet Earth in Jack Flaherty. He knows he can't push Flaherty, and he takes him out after 41 pitches. I think he's done a marvelous job.
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to get to. Just, I can't even imagine being Mike Schill right now. This is going to be one of the toughest managerial jobs he's ever had to do. He said even last night, I asked him, some of these guys they really don't know anything about because they've had to bring them in and they've never seen them before just because they need fresh arms. Over the last 8 days or so, there was
Yeah,
somebody new making their major league debut.
I think, Corey, that um, we know this organization has great pitching depth, and we're seeing it displayed as we speak. The question we had going into this season is, do they have enough offense? Well, all of a sudden, Brad Miller has turned into a 400 hitter with pop. You need something unexpected to happen, and that's what's happening. And he's not going to leave the lineup soon. I know that Paul DeJong is going to be back shortly, maybe as early as Monday, but Brad Miller is going to have to hit, whether it's at third base or DH or maybe even the outfield. But this guy has been the most pleasant surprise so far. He delivered again tonight against Sonny Gray with a big base hit.
Let's talk about a guy who's been in the lineup. I think he's played just about every game since they called him up. Dylan Carlson. The results not necessarily there yet, but man, he's hitting into some bad luck. He's hitting balls hard, and he's taking counts deep and just really having some good at bats. I think it's going to come eventually, but it does kind of stink. The results haven't been there right away.
Yeah, but I'm glad you mentioned that. He's had some hard outs. There's no doubt about it. What I'm amazed, not amazed, but a little surprised, is they're playing him every day. I guess when you have two outfielders with COVID 19 and another outfielder named Harrison Bader who's hitting 150, you're going to have to trot Dylan Carlson's name in the lineup. And I just hope he relaxes and just lets his talent just, be evident. It works in other markets. Ronald Acuna Jr., Soto, those guys were his age when they got the chance. If I'm Dylan Carlson, I got to realize, the manager's going to put me out there every day. Just relax and play the game. And, he's seeing some unbelievable major league pitching. And let's face it, he's had this, weird spring training where he's in Springfield. He couldn't play for a while. I think he's going to be fine. I'm really appreciative that the Cardinals are playing him every day.
Yeah, I am surprised. I guess when you break it down like you did, it makes more sense. But I thought they would have at least sat him at least once or twice. But he's been in there all the time at various outfield positions. So he's definitely getting a chance, getting thrown right into the fire for his first time up. You mentioned Paul DeJong. You talked to him today for quite a while. He's one of the guys on their way back. Yadier Molina back in the lineup already on Thursday to I guess really nobody's surprised because if it was up to Yachty, he probably would have just continued playing no matter what. But they're going to get reinforcements here hopefully soon as guys start to work their way back. How much of a shot in the arm could that be, and what kind of shape are these guys going to be in?
Well, how about this? I mean, Corey, How many times in the history of the Cardinals organization have they acquired three All-Stars at the trade deadline? And they did. Carlos Martinez, Yadier Molina, and Paul DeJong. I mean, this is going to be huge. I don't know about Carlos's durability, but, a pitching staff where you're getting 3 innings and 2 innings out of some starting pitching, it would be great to have Carlos go out there in his first outing and go 4 or 5. The shame about Paul DeJong is he was already in midseason form when the season started. I mean, he and Colton Wong had worked so hard. He had displayed power. He had hit for average. He was fielding well. But, the way he sounded today, it's not going to take long for him to get going. I'm glad he's going to going to Springfield first, though. And then when we see him, hopefully Monday, maybe Sunday, he's going to be sharp again. But he's going to be a huge asset to this lineup because if you bat him 4 and then Tyler O'Neill 5, maybe Carpenter 6, it really, stretches out the lineup.
That's a good point. Let's have a little fun here. I wrote something yesterday, taking just a look at guys around the league who used to play for the Cardinals, who are having good seasons. A few of them are having bad seasons. It's kind of fun to look back and play a little revisionist history, I guess. But did you have any thought in your mind that Luke Voit would be a bona fide star for one of the premier sports franchises in the world right now? Because that's what's happened.
Yeah, it's a great thing for you and me because he plays on our fantasy team. We should be very honest about that. No, I didn't think that. I did think he could be a 20 home run hitter in the big leagues, no doubt about it. But to do it with the New York Yankees, to have 1,000 OPS, to have 10 home runs already, this is awesome stuff. And nobody's watching Luke Voit statistics more closely than you and I.
Every time he's up and I'm watching MLB Network, I have to watch him for that reason, and because I do wanted to see him do well, because being a St. Louis kid, of course, I can't believe he's got to be their star now too, because they got a lot of injuries over there. So he's their main offense that the Yankees are leaning on, which is wild to think about. Lance Lynn also off to a really good start, one of the lowest ERAs in baseball. Looks almost recognizable. Put on a few pounds there, put on a few pounds in the beard. He's really killing it down in Texas, too.
And then how about our man, Randall Grichuk, starting to display some power for the Toronto Blue Jays, too?
Grichuk, yep, I put him there on the list. I know you're a big fan of Trevor Rosenthal, who's always been a really nice guy to deal with. He's having a good season so far for Mike Matheny and the Royals. I think he might have figured it back out and is back on the right track to be successful.
Corey, there's a baseball field in St. Charles. It's called C&H Ballpark. And basically anybody who plays youth baseball in St. Louis ends up playing in that field. Well, during COVID-19, Mike Matheny, who lives in St. Louis, had Trevor Rosenthal throwing BP to Paul DeJong and Colton Wong. I believe Luke Voit was out there and some other minor league pitchers in the organization. And the reports I got is that nobody was touching Trevor. So he's back. Even the last couple of years when he couldn't get the ball over the plate, he still had his velocity. It sometimes takes a little bit longer after Tommy John for a guy to get his feel back. And it's just great to see Trevor doing that. I texted him the other day, and he couldn't be happier. And he's look, he's playing for a manager in Mike Matheny who saw him at the absolute zenith of his career. So when you have somebody who really believes in you, who has seen you great, that's just a great situation.
Let's move on to some Blues talk. Up again last night, watching them play against Vancouver. Dropped Game 5, so they're now on the brink, and they've got to win the next 2 games if they want to move on against the Canucks. But we know this team. They've been here before. What did you see last night? It seemed like they looked like they did for Games 3 and 4. Hard, causing trouble out there, spending a lot of time in Vancouver's zone, and then just kind of eased up, and Vancouver all of a sudden came back in the game, and it was over before you knew it.
Yeah, it was just 6.5 bad minutes I'm not sure how it happened. Braden Shen said it's like we fell asleep. And that, 6.5 minute nap, who knows, could play a role in the season ending tomorrow night. I don't think it will end tomorrow night because I think the Blues have gotten to their game maybe for 5 of the last 6 periods, and I think they're going to come out flying tomorrow. But that was brutal. It was so unexpected because you just thought, hey, you're 2 victories away. You're up by 2 goals. You're in the second period. Let's just finish this thing off. And then all of a sudden, they just they fell asleep.
It was nice to see Jake Allen, a guy who had been so supportive last year on the bench, come up big to tie the series at 2 games. He was great. I don't think you can pin last night's loss on him either. He was all right. But who do you think we're going to see in Game 6? If I had to guess, I think Binnington's going to get another shot on the verge of elimination.
Yeah, basically every person that I've spoken to today that's close to the Blues or in the organization believes it's going to be Binnington. I just think if the season is on the line and Jake is coming off just an okay game, not a good game, you have to go with the guy who won you a cup last year. And I'll tell you, Corey, there is nothing more dangerous to the opposition than a pissed off Jordan Binnington. And you have to believe with the way he has performed, in the bubble where he is 0-4 with like a .81 save percentage, he's going to come out and play one of the best games, of his season tomorrow. That's why I really believe that Craig Berube, although he was non-committal today during his Zoom call, I think he's going to go with Jordan Binnington.
I think you're right. Last thing, Blues related. Just this entire postseason, and really since he's been here, it's just been a joy from the hockey gods. But especially these last 3 games, I don't know if I've seen him make a mistake this whole postseason. He's everywhere where he needs to be at the right time. His hockey sense is off the charts. Just how much fun is it watching Ryan O'Reilly as part of the Blues?
Yeah, I love the numbers too. I mean, the last 2 playoffs combined, he has the most points. He has the most assists. He's won the most faceoffs. It's one thing for a guy to be like an incredibly hard worker. Okay, so that's one. And then it's another thing for a guy to be the most defensive oriented forward. That's another. And it's another thing for that same guy to have all those skills, offensive skills. I mean, he's 3 for 3. Like you say, you just don't see him do many things wrong. I remember in Game 3, I was tweeting out, I wouldn't be surprised if he stays his career here if his jersey is not in the rafters one day. And then after he scored that goal last night, I said, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a statue about him. Now, people are saying, all right, hold up. Now, this is all contingent on him spending the rest of his career here and maybe the Blues winning another cup. But, it's after Brett Hull, I think the second best trade in Blues history.
Let's get to talk about a little bit about your list this week. It's fun. It's kind of a weird one. There's no real. We get a pick from a bunch of different things. The dog days of August. Some crazy things that have happened in this town in sports in the month of August. First one I want to talk about is the Gary Templeton incident. How do you remember that? Because I think everybody's seen the infamous pictures of him getting escorted off. Well, escorted is a nice way to say it. Pulled off the field by Whitey. How do you remember that whole situation?
Well, it was wild because the game wasn't on television, and we have video somewhere in the Channel 5 archives, but we couldn't find it because of COVID-19. We're not in the building. But those photos will stick with you forever. And, let me tell you something, Corey. As a young man growing up and watching Templeton, I can remember when he had that season where he had 100 hits from the left side and 100 hits from the right side. And then at the baseball writers' dinner that December, Gary Templeton this is when the writers' dinner was huge, that 2,000 people, and he got in front of everybody and he said, folks, you ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, he was just so special. And then, he had that, the fans were really brutal on him. and he started to walk towards the dugout. And I've interviewed him about this before. He alleges that there could have been a racial slur or something was yelled at him that wasn't just a boo. And that's when he gave the middle finger to the stands, and Whitey just pulled him down. And then, shortly after that, I guess it was that off season, Templeton was traded for a light hitting shortstop in San Diego. I believe you know his name, Ozzie Smith.
Stories like that don't usually end like that, where you end up trading for a Hall of Famer after you have to get rid of a guy for having an incident like that. It doesn't usually work like that.
Yeah, did you ever hear the story what Ozzie did? What Whitey did with Ozzie when he got here offensively? I think the deal
I don't
was
think so.
he gave him $10. Yeah, he gave Ozzie Smith $10 every time he hit the ball on the ground, and then Ozzie had to give him $10 every time he put it in the air. And so eventually, Ozzie was, hitting, 280, 290. I think he finished up 282, and Whitey said, "This bet's off. I'm losing too much money." I mean, he was hitting everything on the ground and utilizing his great speed.
Let's try it out in Major League with Willie Mays Hayes having to do push-ups every time he hit one in the air.
Yeah. I mean, Ozzie ended up with 2,400 hits. And when he got here, he couldn't hit at all. It was awesome the way he worked at it and the way Whitey Herzog told him, put the ball on the ground and utilize your speed.
The other incident on the list this week that kind of caught my eye was the Mcguire ejection in 1998. How big of a deal what date was that on? Was that really, really, really late in August, or how big of a deal was that in terms of the home run race? Because if he came up a couple of home runs short, that would have been a huge deal.
It was such a big deal that Jack Buck had to quiet the crowd down. And I mean, there could have been a riot. There was stuff thrown on the field, of course, but it could have been worse. And Jack Buck made sure that the umpires were going to be safe the next day. Only Jack Buck could do that. I mean, no broadcaster could control 50,000 people. But when Jack Buck said, "Hey, let's behave. Let's not, destroy these umpires." I mean, it was brutal. Because let's face it, Corey, the only reason to go to a game in 98 was to watch Mcguire hit. They weren't going to win any games. They weren't going to win a championship. And for him to be ejected on national TV in the first inning, oh my goodness, it was wild.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for this week's Sports Plus Live. Hopefully, we have Blues still to talk about next week as they're in the second round. We're hoping for. But make sure you join us back here next week. We'll have a lot more to talk about no matter what, with the Cardinals still going on. And hopefully, they got their all guys back from the COVID list as well. Take it easy, everybody.